All right, let's talk a little bit about this statement right here. Rational people respond to incentives. Now, I call this the biggest no duh in economics. It's obvious. It's common sense. Okay? Um, but let's unpack this a little bit and talk about why it should be common sense and why it's still really tricky. Um, So, the first thing I want to unpack here is that we are saying that people are rational. We'll dig a little bit deeper into this assumption. Obviously, people aren't rational, but for purposes of economics, we assume that people are going to make decisions that benefit themselves in the most rational way possible. And we assume that rational people are going to weigh costs and benefits when making a decision. They're going to go, okay, well, um, it's going to cost me this much. It's going to benefit me this much. Maybe I'm not going to do it. But if you change the benefits and the costs, it changes that mental calculation that we do. And I'm not saying we sit there and we're like, we pull out our calculator and we figure it out. But when different things change, it changes our behavior. Um, And this is kind of like a no duh. Like if you give someone a reason to do something, and that's what an incentive is, if you give someone a reason to do something or to not do something, it's going to affect their behavior. I'm not saying that changing the incentives will always change everyone's behavior, but it will change behavior on some group typically. So these don't have to be monetary costs, these don't have to be monetary benefits, but a lot of times they are. So if you want to get somebody to do something, what do? You offer some sort of incentive. Okay, you change what the incentives are. If you want them to do something more, then you can either decrease costs or increase benefits. If you want them to do it less, then we increase costs or decrease benefits. Um, so let me give you a real simple example. So those of you from the future, okay, this is early 2021, and we're just now getting the COVID vaccine. And really, the US government wants everybody to get vaccinated. They want to get things back to normal as soon as possible. So they want everyone to go out and get this vaccine. Well, some people are knuckleheads. They're just not going to get vaccinated, or some people are going to go, oh, well, I could get vaccinated, or I could take this nice vacation. So the government basically just says, look, we have paid for the vaccine. Well, you paid your taxes, and then we paid for the vaccine, but it's already paid for. All you have to do is go get it. So what they've done is they've taken that cost and they've lowered it. Um, where now most people it's in their best interest to get the vaccine. Now, that's not to say it's actually free. Obviously, it's being paid for with taxes. It's uncomfortable. Okay, you have to go to the place to get it. So there are still costs, but the cost has been greatly reduced, and the financial cost to the person getting the vaccine has been reduced to nothing. Okay, so that increases that behavior that they want them to do. Um, if you want someone to do something less, um, we can increase costs or decrease benefits. So one of the things we do is we tend to tax things that we don't want people to do. So, for example, there's a gasoline tax because we're like, hey, can you like drive your car a little less, please? There's taxes on cigarettes. There's taxes on alcohol. Um, so these are things that we're saying, can you maybe do that a little bit less than what you would do otherwise? And the goal, at least, is that these taxes will cause that behavior to decrease. Um, and a lot of times, we mentioned with the vaccines, We made it free to increase people's use of that. Sometimes we'll also do subsidies. Subsidies are where the government literally gives you money for doing something. There's a very large chance that I'm going to get solar panels on my house. And part of that is, because I'm like a hippie trying to save the planet. Some of it is because I'm trying to save costs, but also the government provides subsidies for people who do this. They basically say, look, we're going to pay some of this cost for you. We're gonna put money in your pocket if you do this. Um, so taxes is like punishing you and saying, "Hey, please don't do that." Okay, we're going to increase the cost. Subsidies is saying we're going to increase the benefit. Okay, we're going to give you money if you do this. Now, one of the tricky things is many policy decisions are going to tweak incentives in ways that they didn't intend to. Um, one of my um, one author that I read sometimes, he said he taught his daughter to be potty trained using M&Ms. Hey, anytime you pee in the potty, I'm going to give you a thing of M&Ms. And well, how did this change behavior? Well, at first, it had the intended effect, and that intended effect was that instead of peeing in her pants, peeing on herself, she would use the restroom. She would use the toilet. But after a while, she thought, hmm, okay. And she would go and she would pee just a little bit, and she'd get some M&Ms. And M's. And then, 5, 10 minutes later, she'd pee some more, get some more M&Ms. So yes, in some ways it had the intended effect, but it also had some unintended effects. And this happens all the time when it comes to government policies. An example would be the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. The idea behind Obamacare was to make sure that um, every family had health insurance. The idea being that if anything catastrophic happened, that all these families had this health coverage. Well, one of the provisions of the law said that if you worked over a certain number of hours, I think it was originally um, like 40 hours. If your workers work 40 hours, um, then you have to provide them health insurance. And again, the intent of the law is that everybody is going to get this health coverage. But you need to think about it from the employer's perspective and think about what their incentives are now. If their incentives are to maximize their profits, um, and they go, well, if I have this worker working 40 hours, I have to pay them health insurance. You might think, oh, well, they're just going to give everyone health insurance. Well, in some cases that happened. In other cases, all that happened is they cut their hours, which again was kind of a predictable consequence. But even though it's the biggest no duh in economics that people are going to respond to these different incentives, it's very difficult sometimes to predict how changing something is going to change people's incentives and their motivations. Okay, but this is one of the big lessons: is that rational people respond to incentives.